everybody, this is Joe Joseph, and this is the DailySheeples.com Daily News Brief. I want to start off the night with our official response to what's gone on with the fake news narrative. Of course, you've seen it now for about a week or so. The Washington Post putting out their article listing 200 or so news sites, basically saying that alt media, for the most part, is Russian propaganda. So today, the Daily Sheeple put out its official response. And I want to go over that with you, as well as some other things, too, to set the record straight with regards to where this is coming from. And Melissa Dykes wrote a brilliant piece as our official response, saying our response to being included on PropOrNot's McCarthyite blacklist of supposed Russian propagandists touted by WAPO as written by the experts. Let me start off by saying PropOrNot has about as much credibility as the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, or as WWE is to real wrestling. So let's just get that straight now. She said, in case you missed it, it's an anonymous website called PropOrNot. You should already have red flags. Anonymous website, credibility lost. And it's recently sprung up on the web with its list of supposed Russian propaganda sites. Its tagline, your friendly neighborhood propaganda identification service since 2016. There is no who is information about the site other than it was registered through GoDaddy. It has only existed since August. The bio on the site claims it is an independent team of concerned American citizens with a wide range of backgrounds and expertise, including professional experience in computer science, statistics, public policy, and national security affairs. But the site has refused to identify anyone involved with it, probably because their experience with computer science, statistics, public policy, and national security affairs all deals with people that live in mama's basement. But I can say that because they haven't come forward. We don't know who they are. So that leaves me to have to speculate. And I can do that. Now, the list it released includes some 200 websites, the Daily Sheeple included, that it claims are part of a large-scale information campaign that is deceptively injecting Russian propaganda into American public discourse online, and that this propaganda is undermining our public discourse by providing a warped view of the world where Russia can do no wrong, and America is a corrupt dystopia that's tearing itself apart. Well, at least I got the second part right, that America is a corrupt dystopia that's tearing itself apart, because that's exactly what we're doing. We don't need to tout Russian propaganda. It is in Russia's best interest, first of all, to report the news as it is, because that's not what the American propagandist news agencies want us to believe or want us to know. They don't want you to know what's really going on. So, of course, it's Russia's best interest to expose it. No different than what we did during World War II on Japan, during Vietnam, and basically since every other police action that we've been involved with, where we put out real news about what's going on to those that are, say, being oppressed by a dictator. We do it too. So this is very interesting how they like to spin that. But wait, there's more. Now, we at the Daily Sheeple have never written that Russia can do no wrong. We have, however, written extensively about the wrong done by our own government, however, as many sites also do on that list, interestingly enough. And that's what the press, or the Fourth Estate, is supposed to do, you see. Hold our government accountable. It's why the founding father, Thomas Jefferson, once said, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Now, most major alternative news sites and information sites are on said list, including WikiLeaks, DC Leaks, Global Research, Zero Hedge, Activist Post, Natural News, Washington's Blog, Drudge Report, and many others, just like other so-called fake news lists widely publicized in the mainstream media. This one is obviously biased, pro-American mainstream establishment, and thus it's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. It seems as if anyone who writes anything against the American government is automatically being accused of peddling Russian propaganda. And the site doesn't discuss the fact that outlets like Russia Today report on events that American mainstream media blacklists, thus leaving the alternative media little choice but to search for information from an outlet that will actually report on them. There is no proof of who actually runs PropOrNot.com. It could be CIA for all we know. There are no names anywhere on it. Anywhere and anyone can write a bio that claims a site is run by a team of experts. But that doesn't automatically make it true. Worse, though, is that the Washington Post wrote a hit piece on all the sites included in PropOrNot's list, claiming the site is literally run by experts without any due diligence or a shred of proof other than the site's own claims. Titled, "Russian Propaganda Effort Helped Spread Fake News During Elections," experts say, quote, or the WAPO story not only uploads the claim of random, anonymous, and relatively a new website, but a website that is formally calling on the FBI to investigate us and other alt media sites on the list for espionage. Think about that. Espionage. Everything that we report on here at the Sheeple, as well as other alt media sites, do so from open source information 99.9% of the time. Or if somebody can come forward, say like a whistleblower, and go ahead and put out accurate information that can be confirmed by two sources, not by an anonymous site who fails to reveal their identity. And you don't even have to reveal your identity. As long as the reporter can validate that what he or she is reporting on is true, then you don't have to reveal your source. You can keep that in confidence. However, you at least have to know who you're talking to. But it goes on. It says WAPO apparently got the list from the site ahead of its release and really pushed its legitimacy, referring to it authoritatively as a monitoring report. This is out of the Washington Post article. It says PropOrNot's monitoring report, which was provided to the Washington Post in advance of its public release, identifies more than 200 websites as routine peddlers of Russian propaganda during the election season, with combined audiences of at least 15 million Americans. On Facebook, PropOrNot estimates these stories planted or promoted by disinformation campaigns were viewed more than 213 million times. And the site, by the way, which is supposedly run by experts, sent out tweets like this, quote, look at all the angry Putinists trying to change the subject. They're so very angry. It's cute. We don't censor. We just highlight. Sounds very professional. Sounds like experts to me. Now, the site actually goes on to openly promote George Soros, leading to speculation of who exactly is funding it. This is from PropOrNot's Twitter account. This sort of thing is exactly why Putin regime hates Soros so much, because hatred, bigotry, and delusion are how they rule. There you go. WAPO has been called out by both The Intercept. Now, that's not fake news. That's Glenn Greenwald, with Washington Post disgracefully promoting a McCarthyite blacklist from a new, hidden, and very shady group. And even Rolling Stone magazine, with the, quote, Washington Post blacklist story being shameful and disgusting. Despite a glaring lack of legitimacy, the WAPO article was shared all over the place and republished in a lot of mainstream outlets. Thank God that it wasn't reposted anywhere where people actually read it. And it was an earth-shattering expose, according to a lot of these mainstream outlets. And on top of that, The Intercept points out that the group was apparently dishonest about its allies. Quote, more trouble still, PropOrNot listed numerous organizations on its website as allied with, yet many of these claimed allies told The Intercept and complained on social media that they had nothing to do with the group and had never even heard of it before the Post published its story. How very interesting indeed. So after being called out on it, PropOrNot backslid, later admitting to The Intercept that it had no institutional affiliations and that the list of allies was amended to related projects instead. The Intercept concluded this, quote, in his article, the Post's Tim Berg did not include a link to PropOrNot's website. If readers had an opportunity to visit the site, it would have become instantly apparent that this group of ostensible experts far more resembles amateur peddlers of primitive, shallow, propagandistic cliches than serious, substantive analysis and expertise. That it has a blatant, demonstrable bias in promoting NATO's narrative about the world, and that it is engaging in extremely dubious McCarthyite tactics about a wide range of critics and dissenters. Rolling Stone had a similar take. It said, quote, they may think they're being patriotic, as many did during the Iraq weapons of mass destruction episode. But in the end, what will happen is that they will adopt the point of view of their political sponsors. They will soon enough denounce other reporters and begin to see themselves as part of the power structure, as opposed to check on it. This is the ultimate in stupidity and self-annihilating behavior. The power of the press comes from its independence from politicians. Jump into bed with them, and you not only won't ever be able to get out, but you'll win nothing but a loss of real influence and the undying loathing of audiences. Helping Beltway politicos mass label a huge portion of the dissenting media as useful idiots for foreign enemies in this sense is an extraordinarily self-destructive act. Maybe the Post doesn't care and think about what it's doing. In that case, at least do the damn work. In short, in conclusion, Melissa Dykes writes this: the alternative media is under attack. We feel our website has been slandered as Russian propaganda when we are in no way affiliated with Russia. The allegations have been slung at basically any major alternative site who criticizes the American government, seemingly ignoring the fact that we live in a country with a constitution and a Bill of Rights which enshrine the First Amendment right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. In publishing unsubstantiated claims that the majority of the alternative media are now fronts for a sophisticated Russia propaganda campaign based solely on an arbitrary list on an anonymous and obviously biased site, the Washington Post has shown less due diligence in its reporting than the supposedly less credentialed alternative media it's rallying so hard against. It feels like we've suddenly jumped into a time machine, with WAPO displaying a level of McCarthyism we haven't witnessed in this country since the Cold War. Ironically, the willingness of so-called real news to regurgitate baseless pro-establishment propaganda is the pot calling the kettle black. Unfortunately, repressing and stifling dissent is nothing new. It's just not the American way, and yet here we are. Very well said, Melissa. And folks, I mean, this highlights the power of alt media. Mainstream media understands that they're dying. They know it. It reflects in their subscription base. It reflects in their advertising revenue. It reflects in their power to advance agendas, which is what they've been tasked to do basically since 1917. And that's when J.P. Morgan bought 20 of the top newspapers and pushed out propaganda that benefited him and the money trust, and basically started to pull the wool over the eyes of the masses 100 years ago. And even into the 1800s, we had evidence of mainstream media actually skewing the news. And it's been happening for quite some time. But you, the American people, even overseas, anywhere you go, it's up to you to use your discernment and to stay plugged in and understand what's really going on in the world. And the more that you plug in, the more that you'll realize what's true and what's not, what's fake and what's not, how much of a matrix we really live in, how much of our reality is actually created and not actually reality at all. And the best way that I can recommend you doing it is to unplug the idiot box, the television. Don't watch mainstream television. Unplug from it. Plug into reading. Plug into visiting various independent websites, not ones affiliated or funded by billionaires, because you're not going to get what you're looking for. And I've got to tell you, I think independent media has done an absolutely fabulous job, regardless of what site you go to or what you think about it, of questioning the narrative. And that's really what our job is and supposed to be as media, is to question the official story. Even if it's true, we have to hold these people and these news outlets and these politicians and these institutions to account. And what this shows is that we are looking at the end of an empire. This is empire in its death throes, just like Rome did many, many years ago. SHTFplan.com did a great piece, Jeremiah Johnson. The populace is just as stultified, as easily distracted now as it was then in Rome. He says, the year was 451, and the Battle of Chalons, also known as the Catalonian Fields and Campus Martius, was fought between a coalition of Roman legionnaires, Germanic Viscus, and the Gauls against the Huns. Flavius Aetius was the Roman commanding general, and he led his forces to defeat Attila, king of the Huns and commander of the Hun armies. The loss caused Attila to withdraw and the skirmish into Italy, but again, this time through diplomacy and concessions, he withdrew in 452, returning into what is now modern Hungary. Attila died in 453, and the Hun menace to Europe had ended. Now, Aetius had been the declining and fragmented Western Roman Empire's best chance to restructure itself. He'd fought in Gaul and throughout Italy and Europe for decades, sometimes even with the support of the Huns, before Attila began his quest for empire. A master strategist, tactician, diplomat, and warrior, he effectively stemmed the collapse of the Western Roman Empire for another 25 years. In all probability, he may have been able to turn things around for a longer period of time. But this was not to be, you see, as he was assassinated by none other than the Emperor Valentinian III and his henchman Heraclius on 22 September 454. The emperor killed the very man who had protected and assured his throne, and worse, now there was no true strategist to take the reins of a military command. The last great Roman general was no more, and the Western Roman Empire continued to decline and fragment. Odoacer, a half-Hunnish barbarian general, rallied forces to mutiny against their and his previous commander, Orestes, the Roman senior military general. And in the battle, this was in the Battle of Pavia, August 23rd, 476. Orestes was captured and was killed. And less than 2 weeks later, on September the 4th, 476, Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman Empire and the son of Orestes, was deposed by Odoacer. Now, the city of Rome had formerly been sacked by the Viscus in 410 after they had originally arrived outside the gates in the year 408 and roamed the surrounding countryside. Although the city had been taken, it had not been burned to the ground, with the Senate being the only edifice that of note that had not been raised, or that had been raised, pardon me. And this was because the Viscus were Christians and held reverence for the churches in the city's predominance as the center of the Christian church. So the legions had already begun withdrawing from Britannia, or Britain, and interaction and mutual commerce there ceased by the year 410. Very interestingly enough, the period that Aetius drew the Western Roman Empire from the brink of collapse occurred during the year 424 to 450, when for the first 2 decades he battled the Gallic and the Germanic tribes throughout all of Europe in various calculated surgical campaigns. The culmination of these efforts came at the Catalonian fields in 451, but most historians agree, although that although it was a decisive battle and turning point, Aetius' main work had been accomplished in the 2 decades prior to that. And here we are, as history repeats itself, in the last days of the American Empire. Now ready to assume the purple and ascend to the seat of power, Donald Trump is going to command and lead, or so we hope. The campaign for the midterm elections will begin in November 2017. Therefore, Trump has less than 1 year to begin and reverse the devastation wrought by 2 consecutive Obama terms and also 2 consecutive Bush terms. In 8 years, and actually 16 years, it's placed the country on its deathbed and measured it for burial. So in a 4-year term of office, Donald Trump has to do the job that Aetius did for Rome in 2 decades, with the last year of that term being wasted on the primary focus of his reelection. So what's the difference between Rome and America? Well, a vast geographical area, an influx of alien migrants, an economy that's faltering, a military less than at its best, immortality, a vice and corruption at every turn, societal degradations and a welfare state, and foreign nations ready to pounce and characterize both empires. Now, because in order to restore the United States, there's one thing that Trump will have to do that Aetius could not do in Rome. And that's change the mindset of society and propel people into a conscientious, a consciousness of individual control over themselves and the reversal of the moral and community decline of their own accord. Now, I will say this. They can do that. Trump can do that if that's the intent and if he uses independent media, because independent media can help do that, much as independent media helped get him elected. Now, what do the odd makers give in Vegas placing that this can be accomplished? Your guess is as good as mine. But he says, I'm betting against, because as long as money and power back the throne can never be fully effective. He's right. Look at the people that Trump is surrounding himself with. Today he met with the president of Goldman Sachs, who's probably going to be his Treasury Secretary. Think about that for a second. He wants perhaps Mitt Romney or General Petraeus to be Secretary of State. Now, I'm a human being, as well as everybody else out there watching this video understands what it means to be human. Humans are fallible. It is an unbelievable concept to think for a second that you're going to find somebody pious or perfect enough to hold up to the scrutiny of office and be the perfect individual, and I've lived a pious life, and I've done a baloney. What you want is somebody in there that's real. What you want are statesmen, and statesmen are few and far between. And those that would be good for the position typically don't want that kind of attention. They just don't. I don't fear for what's coming, but I can tell you what's coming is going to be extremely difficult. I don't think that people are going to see the happiness that they envision with a Trump presidency. I don't think that people are going to enjoy prosperity as they envision they're going to achieve. Even if Trump embarks on grandiose infrastructure projects, that he lowers the corporate tax rate to 15%, let's not forget that most big corporations don't even pay that tax rate. Nowhere near. As a matter of fact, some of them don't pay any taxes at all. Corporations like Apple and others typically skirt any sort of government taxes or corporate taxes. Most corporate taxes come from your small businesses. Now, will it help small businesses? Perhaps. But I can tell you that it may be a little bit here, a little bit there, throw a crumb at you. but you're not going to see the change that you're hoping for. I don't think this empire has enough gas in the tank left to be able to dig itself out of the massive hole it's in. So it remains to be seen what's going on, but you can see that there is an effort underway for the death throes to be averted, for somehow this corpse that's called America, that's on life support right now. I call it a corpse because I think it's dead. It's brain dead, and it's being held by life support, and there's just an open refusal to pull the plug. And so the powers that shouldn't be are just kind of throwing money in there right now to kick the can down the road long enough until they can do it the way they want to do it. But I truly believe that it's coming. I don't know. Remains to be seen. I'm Joe Joseph. This was the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief. I'll have one again for you tomorrow, folks. Have a great evening, everybody. God bless.